All right, I'm also going to spotlight my video. And you should now be able to see it larger as long as you are on speaker view. And I'm just going to adjust my camera here a little more. And we'll get started. So, welcome everyone. My name is Anita Thompson. For those of you that are new, I teach all sorts of workshops for different ages through mostly libraries, a few other venues as well. And you will receive this recording at some point after I release it to the library tonight. So they don't always release it in the first like day or two, but it will probably be at least by the end of this week. Um, and then also I'll share my email at the end for those that don't have it and would like to be added to my weekly newsletter. Okay, so we're going to get started. So we're going to need our pencil first, and this is a 9 by 12 inch drawing paper. You don't have to have 9 by 12, you can have 8.5 by 11, but it is in landscape mode. So it is, if I were to hold it this way, this is the usual way we'd be using the paper if you were writing. But we're going to be using it long ways because this is a larger drawing. So we're going to get started, and I'm just going to fuss a little with my paper here. There we go. Um, you'll see throughout, I will zoom in certain parts, especially as we start doing the coloring and the shading. So getting started, we're going to make sure that our piece is centered as much as possible. And we're going to start over towards the top left corner in order to create our stem. And so we're not going all the way up to the top. We're going to go around maybe right here. And I'm going to zoom in a bit more now that we have started and add a little more light. There we go. And so we're going to start to create the stem line. And it's sort of not a straight line, as you can see. And there are parts of it that, you go in, you draw a little bit closer until you get to the part that's going to connect the leaf. And I like to kind of go back and just add a few more sort of, I call them cuts, but it's, just the line going in and out. You're also going to want to make sure that you draw this lighter. I always draw darker on Zoom so that it shows up. I'm just going to add another light source here. There, that's what I was looking for. Also, if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat. If you need me to move something, if I've, sometimes I get to, starting to do the drawing and I forget that I'm like moving my paper down where it's not viewable in the camera. So just let me know if that happens. All right, so we're going to start now with the leaf part here. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to be drawing the center line first. And so that's sort of a center vein. So we're going to start that here. And basically that line is going to go towards the bottom right corner of our paper. But obviously we're not going that far. Move this up a little more. Okay, so we have the pointy, kind of the pointed part of the leaf. And we're also going to be making sure that when we draw the veins, the other veins as well, we're going to be drawing a double line because the veins are, kind of, they sort of jump up above the surface of the leaf. And in order to interpret that, it's not really a line. So I'll show that as we start. So let's continue now, going back to the stem here, toward the stem, and we're going to start to now draw this portion of the leaf. So we have a bump happening right at the stem, and then we have sort of a little bit of a smaller bump, and then we're going to start to extend outward, and it's going to be a little pointy. And so what we want to do is we're going to draw basically the basic shape of each portion, but if you need to go back and fine tune it, I'll give you time to do that. So what's going to happen here is the general shape is, we've got some, lines that are curvy. We go inward, we've got more curvy, and we want to think about that, the ending of these two parts of the leaf are shorter than this part. So going back to it, we now go back to the center. Now we haven't drawn any of the shadowing that's going to happen. We will go back and do that. But for right now, we're doing a general shape of what the outside leaf is going to look like. And so drawing it very lightly is the key. So this is the big leaf area, this part here that I'm starting to draw. And you can start to add some, curving of the side of the leaf. But really what you want to make sure to get is this portion here. So you've seen I've kind of left this alone a little bit. I've stopped drawing it because I want to make sure that we get the overturned part of the leaf. And it's going to look something very similar to this. And it happens about right here where the center of the leaf is. Remember, we drew that line to guide us. And then this is the overturned area of the leaf. I want to give everybody some time to just kind of look at their own drawing and see where that is. Excuse me. Just gonna take a drink of water while eating. Oops. All right. So once you have this portion here, you can now go about kind of reconnecting the rest of it and making it a little more bumpy. I wanted to make sure to get this part in. And then it starts to curve a little here. We have a big bump. It goes in, and we have sort of two smaller bumps as it gets connected to this larger portion. And our leaf turns upward at the end. Okay, so that is the first section of our leaf. And we're going to now start on the other side. We haven't done this section yet, actually. So you know what? Let's come over here since we did start on this side. So we have this overturned portion. This is the back side of the leaf. So let's start here, and then we're going to extend our curve, right? So looking at this is where we are at. We're going to extend that curve, go inward, outward. We've got some very small little bumps, and then we go out straight to the tip. Okay, so back here, we go outwards, back in, and out again, close to the center where we have some wiggly lines, and then here we are going out straight. Now, the other thing is you may have to adjust your lines as you're drawing. Maybe you've made it, too short for your drawing. Maybe you've made it too long. That's okay. We will adjust all of this as soon as we get to the other side. Okay, and so now we get to the other side. So what we're going to do first before we continue is start to draw in some of the veins. So we're going to start here. And basically, we're going to draw in some of the main veins. And again, I'm going to make these dark so that you can see them. For now, we're only going to draw the center of the veins. So it comes from the center of the leaf, right? The main vein. And remember I said, we're going to make it as if it is kind of sticking up. And for now, it looks a bit dark, and then we add the smaller veins that come off of it. But for now, we're adding the main veins. This other one is going to come towards this portion of the leaf. So we go about here and we go toward the center of where it starts to turn. And now these lines are thin. Should be making the veins thin. We will be erasing parts of the vein later on because in real life, it's not a line. And so when the leaf turns at certain points, you wouldn't really see part of the line of the vein. Anyway, now with that, we're going to now continue on the other side. All right, so we have the other side. We have this, this part of the leaf that is bumpy. And then this other one, this other leaf is a little bit lower than this top one over here. So we want to kind of bend in and then out again. And this is where we're going to create the first kind of pointy section of that leaf. We're going to go inward and we're going to be going in this direction for this leaf, but we have a bumpy part of the leaf here first. And before we continue with the rest of the leaf, we're going to go back and have we're going to draw the vein. And that's going to help us with the way that our leaf is curving. If you're ever sort of confused about your leaf, you can always go back and draw the vein, that middle vein. And so just done that. And now it makes it a little simpler to see how far your bumps should be from the actual center of the leaf. So I've also realized I need this to be a little bit longer on mine. Again, the tip is curling. And then we're now going to be making the curved parts of the rest of the leaf. So it goes out this way and goes in, but we have another bump here before we start off or finish up on our final section. And then we get to the all the nice layering that's in this one. Has anyone noticed how beautiful the leaves are after it rained? They just popped. They were so dry. And this right now, the leaves remind me of when I was a child. I don't remember them being this vibrant in the last few years. I think we had one fall maybe 2 years ago that was sort of started to be like this. And it's always that, you know, I've heard it's between the sun and the rain, how much sun it gets, sun the leaves get, and the rain. The rain definitely moisturizes them. Okay, so now we are going to now finish off this leaf. And so we start over here. So again, I'm pointing to where we ended here, right? And so we're going to start to go outward with some of the smaller areas of the leaf. And there's another bent part. And then we have this part of the leaf that is going to go inward. And then the rest of it goes towards this section that is pointy. So again, if you feel like that it's not matching up, you just go in and you can erase. Like mine was getting a little bit not as long as it should have. So I'm fixing that now. Making the edge a little bit less pointy. And so you now want to just take a look and make sure that your leaf is the way you like it. Because we are going to start with the actual coloring very shortly. The other thing you want to do is you can lighten up your drawing using an eraser. We will be going over this in brown. That's going to be our next color. So you might want to get that ready. We will also be using our brown in order to add in the shadows. Oh, let's see. Ooh, John Paul looks incredible. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see how everybody's turns out because I really think these are going to be so different. And that's my favorite. Okay, so let's grab our brown. Let me make sure. Oh, no, I grabbed mahogany. There we are. Brown. You want to make sure that it is nice and pointy. So if you need to sharpen it right now, please do so, because we're now going to be outlining the entire leaf in brown. And this is a hard outline. So I'm going to start to go in a little more closer to our leaf here. All right, so we're going to start with the stem. So basically, we are going to be outlining this entire thing in brown. So I just like to kind of start with the stem because I also like to kind of go back, and if I want to make things a little bit different, I do that now. Like I'm doing that with my stem a little bit because I went a little bit too chunky on the stem. Okay. And then just start to do the rest. At this stage, you can also add, little kind of little wavy lines if you want, more detail basically. So just take your time and do that right now. You can see I'm kind of correcting myself in certain regards. And this doesn't have to, I always say, this doesn't have to look exactly like mine. If you miss a curve, which you probably will, because we don't have, you know, a complete amount of time to make every single part of this look exact. But you are always welcome afterward, to spend more time on this, which I know a lot of you do. And I love that. So again, just take your time and go around, get every nook and crevice that you want to add. Because then we're going to do some erasing of the pencil underneath. Okay, so now I'm just going to erase my pencil underneath along the edge. Not so much what we've drawn on the inside yet, because we haven't gone over those lines yet. You should have a drawing that already looks like a leaf. It would look even really kind of interesting if we left it like this, right? But we're not going to do that. We're going to add lots of color. Oh, John Paul, that looks like a real leaf. Awesome. Or as I remember my niece when she was little used to say awesome sauce. And she's 13 now, and I still say awesome sauce. And I said it to her recently, and she gave me the side eye. I said, I can't help it. I think awesome sauce is still fun. Okay. So now we're going to continue drawing with our brown. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing all the lines that happen. And we're also going to be shading on the outside, putting in the first layer of our shadowing, which is under, the different portions underneath the leaf here. So let's start first in the middle. And so we're going to come over here. Remember how we started off with this one? And we're going to start to outline it. And we're going to outline that section. And we're going to do the same with this vein as well. But I want you to go light. And the reason I want you to go light is because we're going to be erasing underneath, and then we're going to be adding all of the little veins that are going to be connected from that. Okay, so we've just done this. We've drawn over this vein and this vein in brown. And we're now going to do this center one in brown. And so we only added one line, but we're going to add two. So first we add this line here, and you can go straight like this to the center. I fixed mine a little bit because, again, I was a little off in when I did it in pencil. And then to add the second line, we're going to come back to this portion of the leaf. And when we add it, we're going to skip space as if we're making a dotted line. See what I did there? I skipped space and I made it sort of like a dotted line. And we're going to continue to do that for other sections of the leaf. So now we're going to go to the vein in the middle of this one. Now this one we are actually going to not skip spaces. So we create one line and we're going to create another one. Like so. And again, I like to start erasing on top of the brown that we just did, so that we erase away the pencil. So you can start doing that now with the lines that we've created. And then we have one final one to do. Actually, no, we don't. This is, sorry about that. Nope. I was looking at my original up here and I got a little lost in it, and nope, we've already completed the main ones. But now we just want to lightly erase away some of the pencil. I just realized my eraser is a little dirty and is leaving some gray marks on my paper. So I'm just cleaning that a little bit. Okay, so now using our brown, what we're first going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to start to create some very light lines that are, and I'm going to go in really close now. So we're going to start to create some of those lines that are happening from the center. So we start off with this one side. And again, if you don't get it exactly like mine, it's okay. But there's some of the first lines there. And we're going to go and do the other side as well. There's about 3. And that's going to lead us on this side of the veins, which we are now going to start here. And now these veins are going to be double, right? Double lined. So there's one. There's another one, again, double lined. There's one down here. We're going to switch to a single line, and this one has some smaller lines coming from it. Then we have 3 more lines coming from that vein. Those are the general ones. We're going to go back later on and add some really very light wispy veins on top of when we start coloring. All right, so we're going to switch to the other side now, right, on this side. And again, we're going to start, and these lines are curving. If you notice, they're not straight, they're curving, right? So we have one here that is a double line. And then we have one here, and it is also a double line, but the second line is a little bit smaller than the first. Our next line is a single line. And the others are single lines, and now we're turning direction. That now our curves are going downward. Okay, so I'm pointing to what I just did here. So they started to turn in direction here, and there's a few. All right. And now we're coming to this center line, and we have two basic curved veins. Here's one, and then we have one more here that's smaller. Now we're going to go in this section that has a lot of veins. Okay, we will pop back up here. Actually, you know what? No, let's do the smaller one first. This one's a little easier. Okay, so we have some very pronounced veins. One that's going to start here and come on back to the center. We have another one that's going to follow the shape of this bump and end up back to the center. So right there. And we kind of have that happening for the next one. And then we have a smaller vein, actually three smaller veins. One, two, and then a really small one here. And that's going to bring us to the other side. I promise we're almost done with our veins. But this is a lot of detail, and if we get it in right now, it's perfect. Okay, so now on the other side, we have a vein that's going this way, and it has a small one going in the opposite direction. We have that happening quite a bit, so that's going to happen with this one too. Go outward, but then it's got a smaller one on the other side. We have a third one. That's happening too. And then as we're getting up into this area, we have single ones. So there's one, two, and as we get up really small, if you can fit it, there's a small one there too. Now this is going to bring us now to this section on this side. And we're going to start here. And we're going to start making these a little longer, going towards the edge of this part. So here that's one. We're going to make the lines first, and then we're going to go back and make some of the, I want to say tributaries, but it's not a river. Here's another one right next to it. And this one's going to get a little lighter and trail off. We're going to have a few more of those. Here's another one. This one, though, is going to go towards the center of the curved one here. See that? We're going to have one here that bends toward that one. And then we have a few more. Here's another one that kind of bends. And we have some small ones. We have one, two, three small ones, if you can fit it. So that are following that one. And now we're going to go back to these and add some wispy lines. So starting with this one. So we start on the other side and we add a small vein here. Now this is where, you can add as many as you like because there's smaller ones even in between. But let's do the other main one. So we'll go to this one now. We add another one here. We add one here that is kind of circular or kind of like a half circle. And we go to the next one. And again, we add a smaller vein here. And we start to get a few more veins. Here's one, two, and then one that's going to kind of curve. We're going to go to the other side of this one and add one as well. Now with this one, we add a small one right there. And this next one, a small one here. And we're good with that one. And then we're finally going to come on this side and we're going to start up where this is kind of curving over. And we're going to add a double one here. We're going to go to this round part and we're going to add another one. So right where that leaf is turning, we add another one. And it's also a double, but the line stops right there. We have two more doubles and they're getting smaller as they curve. There's another one. And then finally one more, if you can fit it, right there. Okay, looking like a leaf. And now we're going to start doing some shading outside of the leaf. Wow, that looks great, John Paul. It's a lot of detail, right? A lot of detail. But it's going to look so good once we start the shading. And this time, we're going to go from dark shading, sort of like, well, medium. We're actually going to start with our brown, and then we're going to get lighter, and then we're going to get darker again. So join me as we continue with our brown, and we're going to start adding a shadow we're now working first on the outside of our leaf. So making it look realistic, like it's, on the ground. So we're going to start up here and we're going to make a brown triangular shadow. And so your shadow shape should be lighter than the rest. So you see how it's very light. And that's what we're going to be doing right now. So we start there and we're going to go back and add blue too. But for now, we're going to add that. And then we come down to the section over here where it's a curve. And we're going to make another shadow shape. That's going to be sort of this shape here. And then we fill it in with brown. Now again, you don't want it to look solid because this is a shadow shape. All right, we're going to continue with this brown. And we're now going to go in this section and make another triangular shape, like so, and then fill it in. We're going to go towards the curve here. And we make another triangular shape, but it's kind of twisted with a sort of a straight line here. Excuse me. We're going to do a big shadow shape. And so we're going to draw the shadow shape first on this side. So it's going to be this one here. And so we're kind of going to draw it's kind of an outline, but not really, but it's like that. And then we're going to fill that in. For now, we're filling it in with brown. Again, we're going to go back and add blue to these and even some black. But everything in colored pencil is layers. So what appears at first to be a finished product never is. It's always the first layer. Oh, nice, John Paul. It's getting more real as you go. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. So our next shadow shape is going to be under here. And so we sort of start to draw a pointy area. So I'm going to draw it first. Starts to kind of go into the next leaf, and then we shade. And we have two final shadow shapes. And this next one is going to be here. So it's going to curve and go to a point, and then a few other little points, and then shade. I think it's a little easier for you to see it when I shade it as far as the shape of it. Like so. And our final one is going to be just a little bit of a sort of a shaded curve underneath this final one here, like that. Now we're going to grab our blue. So we're still in the in the shadow shapes. So this blue, it's a regular blue. It looks like a navy blue almost. So you want a darker blue. It doesn't have to be navy. In Crayola, it looks in between like navy and like a regular blue. So it's not this blue. It's not a sky blue, but a regular blue. Excuse me. I apologize. So some of you know, some of you may not. Uh when Chris and I went to Italy, I caught COVID while we were I think on the plane. I feel like I definitely had it during Italy. And I still have not gotten rid of the cough entirely. This COVID has kicked my butt. So I apologize that I'm coughing still. Oh, that looks really good, John Paul. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so we're grabbing our blue and we're going to come up to back to our stem. We're going to add a little blue now to that brown, and it's going to just give it another layer, right? So look at that. It looks really, I don't know if you can kind of tell. I'm going to go up close. So it gives it a brownish blue color. Again, you're not going, you're not going sharp with it because this is a shadow. And then on the other side, you're actually going to add some blue on the other side. And the thing with a shadow is it's normally darker where it's first underneath the object and then it fades out. So you can see here, again, it's not real dark, but I've concentrated a little darker and then it fades out. So think of your shadows in that way. All shadows do that. If you want to add a shadow to something, it's always going to be darkest right underneath. Yeah, you got it, John Paul. Absolutely. It's always going to be darkest closest to your shape. And so we're going to come back now to this one and add blue. And again, this one actually gets a little bit darker with the blue in this area. And then we get a little bit lighter in the rest of it on top of the brown. We're going to go back in with black too when we're finished. And then we're going to come now to this one. So we're adding blue now to all of them. So now with this one, we add some blue on top of the brown. And this one is a little bit darker, but then we can extend that blue a little bit into our paper, almost like little spikes. We're going to go to this section here, and this shadow is also a little bit darker than most of the ones that we have, but then it gets lighter at the bottom and extending a little bit into our white space in paper. We're going to go to the big one here. And first we're going to cover the whole thing in blue and just a sort of the same shade, just cover it over in blue, just like we did with the brown, um, very evenly. So the whole area of brown we're covering in blue. And then we're going to take that blue and along the edge, we're going to make into the white space, we're going to make some more kind of points of color. Like here's a point, here's a point. So basically kind of three little points. That's just the shadow of the leaves kind of curling. Then we've got the two more shadows here that again, we're just going to cover in blue, kind of real quickly. Nothing really different about these, except I like to extend and make one point with the blue in this one. There. But not with this final one. I just cover it in blue. And again, it's just an even blue for now. We'll come back later and make parts of it a little darker. And when you're ready, you're going to pick up your brown. You're going to put down your blue and you're going to pick up your brown again. And we're now going to start shading inside of our leaf. So I mentioned with this one, we're going to go sort of like medium to dark first. Then we're going to add yellow. And then we start to add our oranges and our reds. So let's pick up our brown and we're going to start shading with the stem. And we're going to start on the left side. And it is darker. Final part of the shadow. Oh, did I miss one? Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I missed one. Thank you. Thank you, John Paul. That was this thin one, right? I'm sorry. Add some blue to that one. John Paul, what would I do without you keeping me in line? Thank you, thank you. So yep, this last one here, you're going to add some blue to that. I appreciate it. And then when you're done that, you can put your blue down and pick up your brown. And we're going to shade, go back on our stem and shade on the kind of like, I call it the left side, right? And so we're shading along the edge of the left side. And as we get towards the center here, as it's going towards the top of the leaf or where it meets the leaf, you get a little darker and then split again. So again, going on the left side, you're shading darker. And then you come together at around this section of the stem and then go towards the top on the other side with your shading. And then we're going to go back down the other side, shading a thin line of shading. And now we're going to shade in the middle, but we're going to shade lightly over the whole space so that now, so what you haven't shaded with, you're going to shade a little in the middle so that now you've created a gradient. I'm going to go closer now. And now we're going to start shading the darker parts of the leaf inside. We will go back with black later on top of the brown, but we're going to start here and we're going to get darker with our shading in this section of the leaf. So you can kind of see where there's dark parts of the leaf. They kind of almost look like they're burnt, right? But it's the leaf. And so we're going to go a little bit darker in this section with our shading. So this is going to be the most detailed part of this. And then the rest is going to be adding colors. No, this is brown. So we're going to do brown first. Yeah, we're still using brown. So we're doing the darker areas first. Yep. Brown. We're also going to go up against this vein, and you're going to make it darker, but it's not, as I call, marker dark yet on the one side. And you're going to do the same on the other side. So again, in that vein, you're creating it to be a little bit darker. Now on that side, you're now going to start shading in between this vein and this one. And you can make those a little darker and then shade. Now what you're also going to do at this point, you're going to make the edge on this side a little darker as well. Again, we're still using the brown, and you're going to make where the tip is a little darker, and it's kind of going to curve around in that curve right there. And then you're going to come around the other side, and you're also going to shade kind of around where that curve is. And now what we're going to do is we're now going to be shading all around the inside of our leaf using our brown. So what I mean by that is we're now going around on the inside, and we are shading as if we are creating another line on the inside, but we're shading it. And so you're probably wondering, well, how big does the shaded line have to be? It's very small. You can see that what I'm doing is I almost draw a line, a shaded line, and then I go back over it. But when it gets to the tip over here on this one, we want to make it a little thicker and darker. And we're going to keep going around, again, shading now on the other side with the brown. So just keep kind of following the line. And shading all along the inside. Sometimes you might have to sort of draw the line as you're shading, you know, like draw your shaded line and then shade as you're doing it. And when you get to a point, you're going to shade that point a little darker when you get to it. So here again, we get to a point and we shade a little darker. Keep going around your entire leaf doing this. Remember, when you get to a point, you know, make the tip of it a bit darker and continue with your medium shading all around until you get back to where we started. Ooh, very nice, John Paul. Yes. It should now look like the inside is shaded with brown. All this is laying the foundation for all of our colors to start layering. All right, now when you're ready, we're going to continue with doing the darker shading now inside where um, the center sections are. So for instance, here, we're going to go up against the vein and just do what we just did with the shading. And then we're going to make some shading in between, starting right here. We start to shade a little bit darker where sort of I want to say it's like the corners. And so start to do that on all four of these sections. It's like a triangle, like in the triangular part here, 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 and a little bit here. So again, here, 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 and here. And then we're going to go along this side. And guess what? We're going to add shading here in between. So basically, you're going to go in between where, remember, we created the veins. So you're going to have it be darker when you're next to, right up against the vein, and then it gets lighter in all these sections. So basically, when you have the inside of where there's a vein, so right here, I'm going to outline along here, here, and here, and then shade it. And it gets a little lighter as I get towards going away from the vein. And you're going to do that all along each of these sections on this side. So again, I kind of outline a little bit of each side and then I shade. And I get lighter as I go out towards the leaf. So here I'm going to do it again, outline a little bit, and then shade, and then get lighter. Do it again. All along this side. And then on the other side in this section, you're now going to start shading very lightly on top of everything, including the veins. So here's this section, and you're taking your brown and very lightly shading so that now your white paper is no longer white, it is slightly shaded. in that section. And we're going to repeat that process for the rest of the sections. So we come into this part here, right? And again, we're going to go right along. And if you want, you can even do this. You can go right along the vein and skip space and make it a little darker. And then shade darker as you know you're staying close to the vein in each section. And then when we're done, we go back and make it light again in the other sections. So you see, you shade darker right where the veins, or it's kind of next to the vein, and then it gets lighter in the rest. And that's where you take your brown and you lightly shade over the rest of it. Like so. Oh, very nice, John Paul. Wow. I almost like it just like this, like the brown too. Like when I was first doing this, I thought, should I just leave it brown? But then I got really colorful when I decided to make the project. So the next section that you want to add some brown to is going to be the underneath here. And you're going to add a little bit of brown shading to the corners. So here and then here. Just a little bit there. And then we're going to go into the next sections and again do the same thing. So we're going to hop over here, right? And we have this section that is brown. And we're going to now just for now shade over this entire area very lightly in brown. Do you see how light that is? Very lightly. We're going over this whole section. So we're doing a little bit of the opposite with this one. So that whole section is light brown. And then we're going to add in our dark brown, well, darker, right in the corners of where it's coming from in each section where it's coming from the main, I keep wanting to say stem, the main vein. So it's darkest along the main vein. And now you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Remember where we started? It got dark here, right here. You can go a little bit darker. And then again, it's going to get very light around this area. Really light in this whole section. And then in this section, it's going to be so light that you are going to be lifting up your pencil and adding strokes of brown, but letting your paper show through. This whole section here. like that. So you're really going to have like the strokes of brown. But then we're going to go back and make it a little darker in certain sections before we start adding our color. So we're going to start here on this side, and we're going to be making some darker areas. So with the bump here, we're going to shade a little bit darker brown right on the bump and on the next one. We're also going to go now on this other side, and we're going to go darker brown all up against the side of where the vein is, right? So you can see, again, it's not real dark, but I'm layering it, making it a little darker. And then we're going to do the same. Again, always against the veins. So now we have that vein that is coming up from this section. And we're now going to go really dark with this vein as it goes toward the top, the pointed part. And then we're going to start shading on top of the veins coming from on this side. You're going to kind of shade it a little darker as it starts off from where the center vein is. And then again, in between, but going along the whole side, you can now add some brown. So instead of doing it individually on the other ones, this one has just a light shading, a little bit of a, well, medium to light shading of the brown on that side. And then we're going to finally come to the other side. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. So remember, there's some double veins here. So you want to kind of outline a little bit those double veins and then shade darker close to where the middle is. And then it gets a little lighter like that. You're going to do that for the next section too. And the next section. And then you're going to put your brown away. And you're going to grab your yellow. You're going to go over everything pretty darkly in yellow.
Which yellow, Anita?
Just regular yellow.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to start off with the regular yellow. And so what I'm doing here is I'm quickly adding the yellow, like it doesn't have to be filling in everything perfectly, but this is another layer. So you want to go over everything in yellow, but it doesn't have to be so dark. It's another layer because we're going to get darker, the orange and the red orange and the mahogany. So these are now we're in the layers. You want sort of an even shading of your yellow over the whole thing. And now your leaf should look yellow, yellow with brown shading. And you're going to put that yellow aside and you're going to pick up your orange. We're now going to start adding parts of orange to this. So shading. And we're going to start here right around this section of the leaf. And basically, again with the orange, you're going to be going over this section closest to the veins with the orange. So again, this is a layer and it's not real dark yet. And then on the other side, again, you're going close to where the main section of the vein is, but now you're paying attention to use your orange in between the veins. So the main veins, right? Like this vein, this vein. No, this is orange. Yeah, we haven't gotten to red orange yet. Yeah, this is orange. It just looks a little bit darker. Yep. So the first thing you're doing is you're sticking close to each section where it is up against the vein, and you are adding in orange layering. Again, it's darker as it gets close to each of the veins. Yep, I put yellow in the veins as well. Yes. Yep, that's a good question, John Paul. So your drawing should still look kind of grainy looking at this point. But we are starting to solidify the color with each of these layers. Now, if you notice, again, darker towards where the big vein is in the middle. And then you can start to extend your orange into the yellow, but going very light on the leaf. Basically, you're adding it on top of the brown where you shaded, and then you get a little bit lighter with the orange as you go into the yellow area of each section. Now your next color is now going to be your golden yellow. And you will now go in between the sections, on top of the sections that you just colored. And you're now using your golden yellow and starting to make it darker on top of everything. And this is going to give it a very golden yellow sheen, of which this is starting to burnish, what's called burnishing, those colors that we just laid down. So again, you're going all over them just like you did with the yellow, but now this is the golden yellow. You can see where this is starting to pop, and I'm going to do it to the rest. See, and you can hear that I'm, taking it and really applying pressure so that our brighter colors are now going to be sitting on top. If everyone's okay, we're going to need another 10 minutes, I think, because I know we started at least 5 minutes later. Look how that starts to pop, right? The colors look like when it rained, and it starting to make the colors very vibrant at this point. And red orange is going to be our next color for those that are curious. Excuse me, or if you're finished earlier. Oh, wow. John Paul, that looks beautiful. Wow. Gorgeous. So excited. I can't wait to see these. So our next color up is red orange. And what you're going to be doing with this is you're now going to start to layer this red orange just like you did with the brown and sort of the yellow. You're going to be going over the entire sections, but again, you're going to be going darker, right, with more pressure, closer to the leaf, to the center, and also starting to add it to the edges on the other side. Oops, I just broke my red orange pencil. So what I'm doing is you can see that I not only go into the center, right, of each of, right up against where each of the sections are of the veins, but I also go along the edges of each of the pointed sections of the leaves. So I'll show you that in just a second as I really destroyed this pencil somehow. Let's see. Okay, finally got it to a point that hopefully won't break. So again, oops, maybe not. Hold on, I'm going to switch. I have another red orange here. So see how I then go along like the bumps, and you can even go along each of the veins. So basically what you're doing is you are kind of highlighting with this color and then outlining on the inside again. This is with the red orange. So you can kind of outline where you have the brown, where we put the brown, including the veins, the smaller veins, because we are going to go back with our black as a final part of making the brown parts of the veins darker. But right now we're adding this lovely reddish orange, and you can see it should be really starting to bring your leaf to life even more. Whatever reason, my red orange in Crayola is breaking like crazy. So remember, going in between each of the sections, right? And kind of outlining in between. See how I kind of did an outline and then I shade it, just like we did with the brown. And you can make some of the tips of the leaf a little bit darker by pressing on the orange. So there are sections of the leaves that have more of a fiery look to them. And so you want to press on your orange in those sections. You know, our final parts will be adding the mahogany and then finally the black for the really dark parts. Remember to go into um, your stem as well with the orange. And then some of your veins, you can even take your red orange, and you want to go over some parts of the veins. You want to leave some parts of them a bit yellow. So you can kind of skip it. I tend to make it darker towards where the veins start off at the tip. As you can see, I'm working each section, adding in that reddish orange, making it a little darker in sections, and then sometimes along the edge as it's curling around, making it a little darker in that area as well. And then definitely in the tips of, just like we did with the brown. So you should be getting like a gradient that is happening on your leaves with now the red, the brown, the orange, the red orange. As we are working toward the finishing of this leaf. And this should be relatively fast because the other colors have provided a base for you. And this is now adding on the remaining colors. So again, there are sections that have a little bit deeper of the orangey red. And again, you would just, really go dark with your coloring, like I'm doing right here section. This is, so you can now start to add red as well. So our last few colors, red and mahogany. Nice, so I'm gonna pick up my red. And red is the same thing where you can, this is now sections. The rest of it was mostly golden yellow and brown and orange. And now these are the final parts of the leaf that are, a little darker. So for instance, this part is a little darker here. So I'm going to color it using the red in addition. And again, I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm doing sections of it. The darker red parts are mainly towards the first parts here that are up against where the stem is. But your mahogany is going to be in the really dark areas before we add the black. So again, your mahogany is that brownish red, and you're going to use the mahogany to go over the final areas that are a little darker in your leaf, but you're also going to use them to darken up at this stage, darken up your veins and add some smaller veins with the mahogany. So here I am going a bit darker and adding in some other veins using the mahogany. Now, if it's too dark at this point and your mahogany isn't doing it, you can then start to switch to your black. But shading with the mahogany, again, in the darker areas where we use like the brown and the red. Yep, mahogany is dark brown. Yes. So see, it's kind of coming off, I think online is like kind of looks a little brown, but there's red in it. And so going along the edges, just like we started to do, you're going to use the mahogany for this along the edges of the tips. This is sort of, again, a spot, kind of spots of it using the mahogany in the darkest areas of the leaves. I go between mahogany and then start to add the black on the tips of the leaves. So here I am here adding black to the mahogany on the tip of the leaf. And then I start to go into some of the veins with the black and just shade a little bit on top of the mahogany. And it gives it that really dark, those really dark areas. Yeah. This is black on top of the mahogany. So now in your darker areas, you can add black and it should go on top of the other colors, but kind of meld into it. And if it looks too dark, you take your mahogany and go on top of the black. So I'm even going into the stem, and you can outline now in black as well as the final addition to your leaf. You can take your black. We did it in brown before so that there's some brown under there. But black can kind of be your final outline. And again, adding some light shading with the black on top of the darker areas. And this is our final part. So I kind of go over each section with the black and just make it a little darker. And then if I add, I just add a little bit of shading on top. See, and that just darkens it up. See, like right here. Just a little bit, because now everything is already, the colors are already there. This is just darkening up our darks. And you can also go on top of remember how I mentioned the last part um, on the shadows, you take some black and you shade over what you did, the two colors, but you do it a little bit darker when it goes up against your object, which your object would be your leaf. And so you don't want to do it solid. You just add that black on top of the shadowed parts in the darker areas, which is up against under the leaf. So I'm kind of doing that now too. So this last part is sort of a combination of things using the black. The black is darkening up our spots. Again, going over some of the leaves, or I'm sorry, the veins closest to the leaf, the vein, and then you can add some more veins with the black because it's not going to shouldn't be looking so dark now because you have all the other colors underneath. Yep, black. Remember, there's a really dark section right where the stem and the bump meet. And this is where I really like to take the black over in this section because it just really makes that section pop by adding the black on top of the colors. Again, it also gives it sort of this, I don't want to say, I keep saying burnt look, like the leaf is burnt, but because that's kind of what it seems like, but that's not what I was trying to portray. It's just a darker area of each of the sections of the leaf. And without all these colors, the black would not look right. Um, it would look out of place. But as you can see with these colors, the black looks now like a shadow color. And remember to go to on the tips of each of the leaf edges and you add that black and it just, again, makes it pop really nice. You don't need a whole lot. And here I'm adding the black in this part, and look how much it makes it pop. I did add the mahogany, which is really helping, but the black is sort of the final part that makes it pop a little bit. Then I go back in with a little bit of mahogany to kind of smooth out the color and make it a little richer. I am curious what these look like. I know you may still need to work on these, but I'm curious to see what these look like at this point. So I'm going to stop the recording.